Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Josh, and you are tuning in to the podcast, Just a Kid from Gary, a podcast that highlights individuals that grew up in Gary or cities like Gary and now are doing amazing things. And today I have a special episode. I have a group of individuals, I would say, that are doing some amazing things in the city. Some might look at them as small town heroes, others might look at them as big town heroes, however you play it. But I am here with Lake County Minority Tobacco Coalition. This group has been fighting, and I'll let them tell on the timeline of how long they've been fighting to clean our city, or just use their platform to bring recognition to just tobacco in general and youth using that. So today I am here with Cynthia. Cynthia is down. If you don't mind waving your hand, Cynthia, how you doing? Also, Albert. I'm great. I'm also here with Albert. How you doing, Albert?
Hey, doing well. Good to see you, sir.
Good. And also I'm here with Lori.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I'm also here with Susan.
Hi, everybody.
Who I've been talking with and who has been so helpful in putting this together. Right before we get into this episode, I would like starting with Susan to introduce herself. I think that this conversation is going to be so important and so useful to our community. And I would love for each one of these individuals to tell a little bit of background about themselves and what they're doing in the city and how long they've been around. And then we'll get into this conversation.
Okay, you want me to start?
Susan, it's all you.
Okay, so I'm Susie Galante. Only my mom calls me Susan, but I'm born and raised in Gary. I'm a Miller girl. I've lived here all of my life, except for when I was away at college, and I lived in Chicago for a brief time. But so I'm a Gary girl, and I'm currently the director of prevention services for a nonprofit called Work Driven Strategies. And I also am the coordinator for the Gary Drug-Free Communities Grant. So that's so you have people from the Minority Tobacco Coalition here. We're all from that coalition as well, but we've combined our two coalitions, the Gary Drug-Free Communities Coalition with the Tobacco Coalition, because our mission is very similar and we're all about prevention and we all work together already anyway. We show up at all the same meetings. So we figured we'd combine our meetings so we didn't have so many meetings to go to all the time. But I started my career working with at-risk youth. I was a special ed teacher for kids who were wards of the state on the south side of Chicago. So I've always had a passion for working with kids who really needed that kind of extra help and extra attention. And when I moved back to Gary, I was still teaching, and then I got this opportunity to get into this prevention kind of field, kind of out of the blue. I was a teacher, so it wasn't something that I knew a lot about, but I met all of these wonderful people you see on these videos here. And they really showed me the ropes, Albert and Cynthia especially. I was so green and new to all of it. And Albert and Cynthia kind of took me under their wing and showed me what I needed to know. And we really hit the ground running with the stuff that we've been doing in Gary as far as violence prevention, which is something that we did through the Coffee organization, Community Organizations for Family and Youth. And then Albert can probably talk to you more about Gary Neighborhood Services, but Gary Neighborhood Services and Coffee wrote for the Gary Drug-Free Communities Grant, and they got the grant and hired me as the coordinator. So we do violence prevention with Coffee, and then Gary Drug-Free Communities, we focus on youth, alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, and opioid use. So we're basically trying to get the word out. A large part of what we do is providing information to the people in Gary. There wasn't a lot of attention being paid to the prevention end of substance abuse. There's a lot of attention paid toward treatment and then incarceration and things like that, but nobody had really been looking at it on the front end. And so I started doing this prevention stuff in 2012 with an effort called Communities That Cares. And Albert was also doing that. And that's when he showed me the ropes. And then we did a lot of different programming throughout the city. We were doing parenting classes. We were in the schools doing reconnecting youth classes, all over the city doing programs. Now, the drug-free communities stuff that we do is more environmental strategies. So we're trying to reach larger populations. So we're doing, wrapping the Gary City buses with our messaging. We're, doing podcasts where we've got a video platform going, kind of larger scale things. Mm-hmm. And then our signature event has always been a big youth violence and drug prevention conference. This past year, we weren't able to have it because of the pandemic, but Albert has been really instrumental in getting us some other kind of platforms, some virtual platforms to get our message out there. So we're really just trying to draw people in. We feel like we're most successful when we have a collective impact. So one of the major things that I was really doing in the beginning in 2012 when I started this was to draw people into a partnership, to let them know that, hey, I know about grant writing. We can help you with that. We're collecting all this data. We're happy to share our data so that you can, get what you need. And it really has helped us to develop a really strong network of people who care about prevention and who really care about Gary and care about, changing the lives of these kids and making things more hopeful. So that's part of what we do. And then all of us are facilitators for many different trainings. So Albert goes all over the place, but I stick in Gary and Lake County, and I do mental health first aid trainings, which help people to understand when someone is going through a mental health crisis and how to help. I do a lot of suicide prevention stuff with the Gary police, with first responders, with teachers, with just general citizens, people who work at the crisis center. And then we do, so we do a lot of different suicide trainings. And then we do coping with stress, teaching people to cope with stress, to avoid the negative coping cycle, which would be turning to drugs and alcohol, and sticking with positive coping. And then we do some trainings on healthy behaviors around prescription drugs and proper disposal of your prescription drugs. We teach about the risk factors that our kids are facing. And then we have data, so we know the exact risk factors that the kids in Gary are facing. So we teach to that and we speak to that. We talk about different ways to build protective factors with the kids, social development strategy and theory. So we're basically, trying to get some knowledge out there that if you tackle some of this on the front end, then the back end never happens, right? And all the money that goes into treatment and law enforcement and all that for people who are struggling is avoided. So that's basically what we're up to.
Gotcha. Albert?
Hey, what's good, GI? It's good to be here on the show, Joshua. Thanks for inviting me. Good to be amongst my peers, Susie, Lori, and Cynthia. Yeah, I am the volunteer. I'm the volunteer director over at Gary Neighborhood Services, as well as the project director for the grant that Susie mentioned. And so the experience that I bring to the table is that I've been first a state trainer for prevention throughout the state, where we were certifying people in the field from as far north as us in Northwest Indiana to as far south as Evanston, Indiana. And so I was able to do that for a number of years with training. And then I also trained nationally with federal agents for the promotion of substance use prevention and what it is in the field that we do. So public health is really what we're centered in. And so just glad to be a part of our super coalition, which is a combination of the two coalitions that are here. We've got the same goal in mind, which is to lower substance use and also present alternatives for the betterment of our health and our behaviors, of not just our youth, but our adults and seniors as well. So prevention is not just a babysitting activity. It's really about wellness. And how many of us really want wellness? We all do. And people are suffering from whether it's smoking or being addicted to tobacco products, including vaping, cigars and chew and regular cigarettes, as well as the drugs that we're dealing with, which are, whether it's marijuana use, whether it's alcohol, right? And not just thinking about it in terms of hard liquor, but even the ones that are promoted towards our youth, right? All those sweet drinks that we know are really youth focused, as well as tobacco. I'm sure we'll share how that's been a marketing scheme of big tobacco, which was always to promote it to our youth. And so we come together collectively to put an end to that. But also violence prevention has also been on our radar for quite a number of years since coffee was conceived in the early 2000s. And so I'm just glad to be a part and sharing the stage with this fellow group of esteemed citizens who are all GI lovers. And so we're glad to be a part of the crew.
And just to make it make sense, Susie and Albert, you guys are both from Gary, right? So
Yeah.
So okay, we're moving along really well, but I just want to make sure so these are people that are in the community, they grew up in the community, and they're still doing amazing things for the community. Lori,
right.
You're next.
That was Lori, right? You said,
Lori,
did you
yep.
say Lori? Okay.
I did say Lori. Yep.
I was just making sure. I'm also from Gary.
Okay.
Pretty much a lifelong resident. I've been here in Gary longer than I've ever lived anywhere else. I started in this work. Oh, I don't have to say the year.
You might as well, because I'm gonna say it.
I started in this work very soon after college while working for the Indiana Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Agency. And what really drew me to the work and really ignited my passion was that for me, it was health justice. I served as a regional director in a really good time for tobacco control. It was shortly after the state of Indiana, along with about 48 other states, had won the Master Settlement Agreement. So these states had sued big tobacco because they lied about how deadly their products were. They lied about the way that they unfairly targeted their products in Black and brown communities and towards women and at youth. And so at that time, we had a really good budget for doing some of the prevention and the cessation work. And that's why 2020 looks a lot different from that year a long time ago when I started in tobacco control. You all probably remember being able to go into a restaurant and having to say if you wanted to sit in a smoking or a non-smoking section. You probably remember, going into bars and it was a given that there would be smoke. It was okay for people to smoke inside at that time. So that's where I started, and learning just about how this wasn't just a public health issue, but it was also very deeply and at its core a social justice issue. I have, in most of my life, whenever I was doing anything good in any other place, had always thought we should do this in Gary. We could do this in Gary. I felt inadequate when I was not doing things in Gary. So after being in Indianapolis for what I thought was a long time. I didn't realize, I didn't realize then what a long time was, right? In your 20s, in your 20s, 2-3 years feels.
Real quick, there is some background noise. I want to make sure I
Sure.
catch up everything that's going on, so everybody can mute their background noise so that we can get
That might be me. I don't know. Hold on one second. Let me see. Hold on.
Okay.
Is that better?
Let's try it out, and we'll go from here.
All right. And I'm getting long with it. I'll cut to the chase. I moved back to Gary. I started a nonprofit organization that dealt with a number of social justice issues in the Midtown neighborhood. I worked for the city for a few years, and after serving the city, and sometimes even while serving the city, I would always return to Cynthia mostly, and working with Albert and Susie on the coalition, because tobacco control is so much a part of what really rattles my cage and really gets me going. And I feel like it's one of those bridge issues to a lot of other issues, and a way to and a way to make impact and improvements in an area that impacts a large number of people. So
Sure.
That's kind of how I got here, why I'm here. Currently, I coordinate the policy committee for the Lake County Minority Tobacco Prevention Coalition, and I look forward to this discussion.
Awesome. And Cynthia.
Me. My name is Cynthia Sampson. And this is like a weird panel. I mean, not really weird, because we're all so tied to each other. I've been in tobacco control, and Albert and I argue about this all the time. I say since 2001, Albert says since 2002. But I said, so, that's ongoing. So I'm just going to say 2001, because it's been, 19 years, 18 years. So it's all the same to me. But prior to tobacco control, I had no clue. I was a prior smoker or previous smoker. And so, I was in the medical field, no biggie. So I got a call one day, and I was asked to apply for the position, and I did. And that's how I met Albert. Albert was one of the first people that I met that worked in prevention. He was young, I was young, right? So, but it was fun. We had
We're all young.
We had
young.
a great prevention department. And so as time passed, and I was introduced to Lori at a conference. She was a babe, literally a babe, fresh out of college, but she had a great position. She was, like she said, one of our regional directors. So for me, it was like all of this is the tie that bind. And eventually Susie came way down the road. I am not born and raised in Gary. However, I did live in Gary for 32 years.
She's always so quick to point that out too. I'm not from Gary.
Yeah.
I'm from East Chicago.
High School. I didn't go to Roosevelt High School. I didn't go to West Side. I didn't go to all of those schools in Gary's that they all rival about. But it has been a fascinating journey. It's been something that I could never imagine that it would be, because I've met so many people from different walks of life with different stories. This tobacco prevention career that I have created and has been allowed to have has been so enlightening. And we've been able to help so many people. We've come a long ways, but we got a long ways to go. So I'm not going to go on and on like my partners did here, so we can get on with the podcast, because guess what? We got a lot of information to get to. So I appreciate you for having me, and we can go on from here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for your bios and even backgrounds. I think we were even able to scratch at the mission by everyone telling their how they got into it. So we'll just get right into it. And I want to get right into it in a unique way and give some credibility to how you guys approach the situation and why your organization means so much to the city. So some people or someone might say marijuana or weed is not a technical drug, or they might say it's not something that, you know, is causing harm. I'll start with this and we can kind of just really dive into a huge dialogue about this. But what would you say to those people, and how is it hurting the youth to points where they're not able to progress in life?
Well,
anyone can take that way.
You know, there's a lot of research and studies that have been done about the effects of marijuana on the young mind. You know, that we get a lot of pushback now because marijuana is legal and because of the medicinal uses of it, but not too many people really want to focus on the effects of marijuana on a developing mind. And the human brain is developing up to the age of 25. And there is a lot of data that shows that it has numerous negative effects on the developing mind. And so we are always trying to get that message out there with just information that we do. And we've done some public service announcements regarding that. But, you know, there's also, you know, if you're using it as a crutch, you know, especially now with what's happening with the pandemic, and with so many kids being so isolated and lonely and depressed, you know, because they can't socialize and they're not attending school, I just really worry about whether these kids are getting trapped in that negative coping cycle that I talked about earlier and are turning to marijuana and alcohol in order to self-medicate and self-soothe. And I just really hope that all parents, including parents who smoke marijuana or parents who use it for medicinal purposes, realize that, you know, there are laws about alcohol, you know, like you're not supposed to drink alcohol until you're 21 for a lot of reasons. And I hope that people take heed of the fact that they really should be monitoring and prohibiting their youngsters from engaging in things, even if they think it's okay for them. That doesn't necessarily mean it's okay for young people.
Awesome. Anyone else want to hit that one?
Yeah, I definitely want to fall in agreement with that. You know, we have the conception that, it's all natural, and so therefore it's all good. And so that's been a belief or argument that's been utilized for that. But that whole thing about the adolescent brain, most people think that the brain is mature on a youth when they turn 18. And so science now with the various brain scan technology that's there shows that the brain is still developing past the mid-20s. So for some individuals, it's not until 26 to 27, even for some very later on into like 28. And so what's happening when people are taking substances that directly affect the brain is that the youth brain, the adolescent brain, is so much more vulnerable to problems that result because it is still developing. And so what we would encourage those that are saying, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with marijuana, it's natural, then at least wait until your brain is fully developed. The other thing, as she mentioned, is what's the need for it? What's the underlying need for the use of marijuana? I have a take on it that many people talk about, which is the drugs of first use, formerly called gateway drugs. And the studies have shown that people that have ended up on addictions to drugs like heroin, crack, meth, and you name any of the other illicit drugs, they all have in common gateway drugs being their first use, which open the door to the harder uses. And what people don't realize is people don't start out as as addicts, as the word would say,
Right.
or people that would be addicted. They start off thinking that this would be helpful. This might knock an edge off. This might take off some pressure. But those gateway drugs, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and prescription drugs have linked to harder uses and harder substances. So for instance, the person that you're going to, because it's illegal here in the state of Indiana. I want to first of all say that. So using marijuana is illegal, and I don't want you to catch a case. We are not about sending Gary citizens to jail. That's not what this is about. This is about protecting your health. So think about who you're buying marijuana from. It's going to be individuals that are not having standardized their formula for that marijuana. There might be extra substances in there. If you're selling drugs, you're wanting repeat business. So who's to say that marijuana that you're buying isn't laced? So now you're not knowing exactly what it is that you're buying. So
Right.
We would say, as with all drugs, especially towards our youth, hey, there are alternatives. There's alternatives for your mental health. There's alternatives for fun activities. And let's go a route that leads to your wellness, not a route that leads to uncertainty. And furthermore, surely doesn't want you to go on a route that's going to lead towards substance use of drugs like heroin, cocaine, and harsher drugs like meth.
Albert, are you familiar with any of the stats that show people within the city that end up on heroin, crack, and the harder drugs from marijuana? Is there actual some level of stats out there?
Yeah. So right now, specifically for Gary, Indiana, I'll have to research that to find that.
Okay.
Those are national stats that you can easily see, as well as studies, but they're pretty much common across the board. There isn't going to be one city that's unique in its use and goes, oh, well, there was no linkage towards other substances. Usually that national data you can rely on to be truth across the board.
Gotcha. And anyone else? Cynthia or Lori, you want to piggyback off that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as the, legalization argument goes, that, and I don't mean to sound too subversive or too much like a conspiracy theorist, but we, especially, in our communities, we cannot let the government tell us what's good for us. In other words, just because something is legal absolutely does not mean that it's good for us. There are plenty of things that have been sanctioned by the U.S. government without our best public health interest at heart, but instead as just ways to make money, like marijuana, like alcohol, like tobacco. There's no way cigarettes or vapes or cigars could ever pass muster through the Food and Drug Administration. These are highly toxic, very dangerous and deadly products. And just because they are legal doesn't mean automatically that they're good for us. There are things like red pop, right? We know are bad for us. There's GMOs in our food that have gone through, that have passed whatever the government standards are, but they aren't good for us. And just like Albert said, it's more about wellness. It's more about achieving a level where we're thriving in our communities and not just doing things because they are legal.
Sure. When you were speaking, Lori, I could even see the opposite side, and some people even saying to what you were saying, that on the conspiracy side, it could be that they were hiding that medicinal use or that medicinal drug from us. And the reason why we have some certain health issues could be because, we weren't able to experience that drug. What would you say to people that might even propose that argument?
Sure. I mean, I think you can make the medicinal argument for everything, right? Yeah. Like putting bourbon or rum in drinks as a hot toddy. I was given that as a teenager supposedly for menstrual cramps, right? I've learned that actually drinking water helps with my menstrual cramps. Like, we have to do risk versus benefit analysis. Like, yes, there may be some benefit to almost anything. I've heard coffee used as an antioxidant, right? But blueberries can also give you the same, if not more, or higher levels of antioxidants, and then also not have the caffeine and not be a diuretic. So, let's get to the root of the medicinal purpose. Like, what is the problem? And let's see if there is something that has more of a benefit with less risk. Now, in older patients, because I think originally when medicinal marijuana was being used for terminally ill patients, for older patients who were almost at the end of their life cycle, well, at that point, then there was more benefit to the risk. But again, a 19-year-old with, again, menstrual cramps, the risk of using marijuana for its medicinal properties outweigh the actual benefits.
Yeah, Lori, and that's what I was going to add after Albert got done, but you went there already, because have been in the medical field for over 20 years prior to coming to tobacco prevention, and I worked on an oncology floor, and that was the thing, because like you said, these people were terminally ill, so it was okay for them to, and this was like back in the day, okay, it was okay for them to smoke marijuana in their rooms. But this is where it got weird, because it was never their spouse or their sisters or brothers that were in the room with the weed. It was always the grandchildren. And I found that to be really odd. Yeah. But because so that told me and told many of us that these were the ones that was bringing the weed. And these were the ones who smelled more like weed than the actual patient. And this was at St. Catherine's, by the way. So it just goes to show you how everything just keeps evolving, not for the good in many cases, but to bad. So, yeah, I was just going to add that piece to it. And also with the new, we go to my section, the vaping apparatuses. This is another way youth are sneaking the marijuana smoking and whatever else they can put in them. Dr. Walker, who is my executive director, that's one of the things he told me. He said, these vaping apparatuses, they were designed for drugs. And so for youth, it's an uphill battle, because you have so many entities that you're fighting to keep them safe from drugs. Yeah. But industries, and I'm saying industries, are constantly coming out with different mechanisms to feed their addictions or to create addictions.
Yeah.
Because I think, sorry.
Please, Lori, go ahead.
I think the bottom line is people want to get high. Right. Yeah. Like, and I think that gets back to Susie's point. Like, we have to get to the heart of why you feel the need to escape whatever your reality is. And then, a less dangerous way is to deal with that, and let's figure out a way that reduces the harm.
Yeah, 100%. So when I was younger, actually, I remember it being normal in the city. Like, I have friends that would smoke cigarettes, and growing up, I even tried it myself, and it was like, it's just something I couldn't really get into. So that wasn't just for me, but amongst my peers, it was normal. From your perspective, or even what you guys study, how is that hurting the youth early on, tobacco use, specifically, not focusing on just marijuana, but now focusing on cigarettes, and then understanding that transition from cigarettes to what Cynthia mentioned about vaping?
Yeah, it was terrible. That was a big part of it, right? When I was in high school, we would see our teachers outside in the parking lot smoking cigarettes.
Oh yeah.
You'd go to games and the coaches would be smoking. So denormalizing it has been a big part of the movement. And that was a big part of the Master Settlement Agreement, taking tobacco ads off of TV. Right, stopping them from using cartoons like Joe Camel with to have cigarettes. Not seeing people smoke at work or at school or in restaurants has been very effective in just denormalizing it. So now, when you see somebody standing outside freezing, trying to smoke a cigarette, it's almost like it's not normal. You think they're crazy for standing outside and smoking that cigarette. They should just quit. So the normalcy of it was a huge factor and a huge problem for us. And now that it doesn't just seem as normal, some people, when they come out of town to Indiana, and I know we're going to talk about the bars and the casinos. Susie and I live in the same neighborhood, and there's a local restaurant bar that still allows smoking. I know when and I've just stopped doing it. I have friends who will come in from out of town, and they couldn't believe it. It's like, wait, people still smoke inside? They get inside and they're like, what is that? Because it's not even normal anymore.
Sure.
So just to kind of piggyback off of what Lori was saying, we collect a lot of data with the Gary school kids, the Gary Community School Corp and the Lake Ridge School Corp, and many of the charter schools as well. And we ask a lot about perception. And, because in the prevention field, we believe that what kids perceive to be true is true for them, even if it's not true at all. If they think everyone is smoking cigarettes and it's okay, and everyone is smoking pot and it's okay, then that's what they believe in their hearts. But the data that we collect shows that there are a larger number of kids who don't engage in the negative behaviors. There's a much greater population of kids in the city of Gary, and I'm sure Lake County, who are not smoking pot or drinking at a young age or engaging in violence or gang activity.
And they all went to Emerson.
But the perception by the kids is that everybody's doing it, so I might as well too. So part of what we do is we have positive social norms campaigns where we try to show kids and the general population in Gary through our public service announcements or our billboards or whatever it is we're doing, the conferences, that hey, there's a larger group of kids out there who are being positive and doing positive things. So don't feel like you have to fall in with the crowd and do negative stuff, because there's a larger crowd of kids doing positive stuff. So we want to try to provide those positive opportunities for kids to shine like that, and then find ways to reward them when they do.
Wow. See, now, and that's, I think that's what we're going to kind of get into, even like the reward part of what you guys do. But before that, I know there's some I would say beef that you guys have with some organizations running around, the city. Now,
Josh, let me interrupt you. It looks like we lost Albert.
I'm here.
Oh, I don't see you on my top screen anymore.
Huh.
You're not up on the bar. All right, well, you're here. Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Maybe it's your view too. You could change your toggle with your view settings where we're all on one thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
Yep. So what I was heading to is, we talked about kids getting into or using tobacco. What? I guess my question is, what have you found, or the reason why kids are using tobacco, alcohol at a young age? I know Susie had mentioned that, there could be some underlying problems. So what have you guys found?
Well, for tobacco, it's just a lot of peer pressure. It's cool. It's the norm in their household. Mom smoke, dad smoke, uncle smoke, everybody smokes. The tobacco industry targets youth with placement of the product. So from a very, 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 very young age, this is what they see. And we'll talk about that later. It's called counter tools. So this is normal for them. This is like no big deal. Everybody does it. When you look at schools and where schools are located, and then you look at where the convenience stores are located, that market and sell tobacco products, right in the school zone. So it's right in their face all the time. So, and sometimes I think, like Lori was saying, in the opposite, how it's not a norm anymore when we see people, outside of a place in 0 below weather smoking. But for children, it's normal to see another kid smoking.
Especially now with the vaping and all
vaping,
that.
yeah.
I have a high school age daughter who says that they vape openly in class, that the teacher turns around to write on the board and the room fills with vapor.
But it disappears.
Everybody, just like, right. and they're smoking marijuana right in front of the teachers.
Yeah.
And it's just.
So has this been an innovation? Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Do you feel this has been an innovation that the tobacco companies has used to put cigarettes right back, or tobaccos right back into high schools?
Yeah, especially with the flavors that they've come out with, like really bubblegum flavored tobacco. Come on, who's that targeting?
The tobacco industry hire what you call influencers, young people, and they pay these young people to encourage, to influence other youth to use the product. Oh man, that's cool, or it's good. Try this, try that. And they make the packaging so engaging and so, drawing. And so, yeah, the tobacco industry targets youth. Get them started young.
Yeah.
Most of them don't even have a job, but they get that money.
Yeah. I remember growing up, you would see all these campaign ads for the tobacco industry, and how I think it was it Truth? They ran the longest campaign. Right. And it made you almost hate cigarettes. Like you were like, people smoking. And then now, but you mentioned with the vaping, now it's cool. You know what I'm saying? You get to vape, it dissolves, and you don't realize, because isn't there a crazy stat behind the vaping? Like it actually is worse than a cigarette. Is that real?
Yeah.
Or
one small jewel pod is equivalent to 21 cigarettes. So you have to think, if a person, youth or adult, is smoking one pod, jewel pod, they have smoked 21 cigarettes. Who does that? I mean, I know major smokers that don't smoke 21 cigarettes a day.
Right.
But these young people are smoking actually just that much nicotine. And they're so misinformed. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was interrupting.
They're so misinformed because a lot of youth think that because it's flavored, it's not nicotine. But these vaping apparatuses, they have these juices, different flavored juices. They have more nicotine in them than a cigarette.
Wow.
And the tobacco industry hasn't changed at all. They're lying about vaping the same way they lied about combustible cigarettes. They haven't been forthcoming about the implications, about the dangers, about what's in them, the way they're marketed. Some young people don't even believe that it's nicotine in them because they haven't been forthcoming about the product, what's in the product, or the effects of the product.
Interesting.
Right. And we'll go way, way, way back. This guy named Victor DeNoble. Laura, you remember Victor DeNoble? Victor DeNoble was the whistleblower. He was the one, he argued and he fought with the tobacco industry because he had a formula to create a cigarette that was not addictive and had no nicotine or something like that. Well, he had to go in hiding for a very long time, he and his family. So, yeah, and he's considered nationally, worldwide, as the whistleblower on the tobacco company.
Wow.
Adults are kidding themselves about the negative effects of vaping too. When the tobacco vaping first came onto the scene, it was touted as a way to quit smoking combustible cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have friends, I know people who vape, and I try to tell them, oh my God, why are you doing that? It's so bad for you. They're like, no, there's no nicotine in here. I'm like, yeah, there is. So adults are also under the misconception that somehow it's less harmful than combustible cigarettes.
So where are people being misinformed or miseducated? Where do you see that happening?
A lot on the internet. A lot of the marketing that you see, like for many of the influencers or the YouTube, the social media, where a lot of it is coming from, because it's not coming directly from the tobacco industry, they don't have the same responsibility to tell the truth. So that's where a lot of it is coming from. Also now, and Cynthia had mentioned counter tools. Because of the master settlement agreement, the tobacco industry cannot advertise on television. So what they do a lot of is point of sale advertising is where they spend a lot of their money. So even in the point of sale, at least in our country, the Surgeon General's warning doesn't have to be big, right? So unless you read the fine print, you could just believe something that somebody else told you about the product that they saw on YouTube or somewhere else on the internet.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I didn't even realize to that extent that was happening. Now you had talked about, and I know we kind of scratched that the casino in Gary that's even going up. What problems have you guys been seeing by that, and what forces have been kind of playing against your organization to stop your success and growth of spreading the awareness of the tobacco use?
Lori, I'll let you have
That's
that.
me.
Because I'm gonna let you have it because we'll both start talking at the same time.
If you seen Lori's eyes while I was talking, she was ready to go. By the way,
that's what I said. Lori, you got that.
I've been waiting for that question for an hour.
Yeah.
I know.
So the largest issue with the casino is just disparity, where people workers, the way we treat service workers, the way we treat Black and brown workers, the way that we treat workers in Gary, people who need jobs in Gary, versus the way we treat workers everybody else. The service industries are now the few, if not the only, places where people are exposed to secondhand smoke at work. Most of us are only irritated by secondhand smoke. If someone happens to light up next to you at the park or in the beach. But we have an entire community of people, many of whom are Gary residents, who are forced to suck in dangerous cancer-causing secondhand smoke every day at work. And most of us, most of us are from Gary. And Cynthia has been in Gary for over 30 years. We know that Gary is a place where people came to work. Historically, this community was built on people seeking to better their lives by going to work. Work is a value, and I think it's consistent with the Midwest, even though I would just say that it's just Gary. But I think it's consistent with the Midwest. We value the dignity of work. Many of us brag about, our elders and our ancestors coming to Gary to work, working hard and doing everything that they can to better our family. So I feel like we have a responsibility to protect people when they are at work. It was a big part of our labor movement that created our 5-day work week, that created the weekends, that ended child labor laws, making sure that people could be safe at work. And that's something that's not happening right here in our hometown, even though it's happening almost everywhere else. The same owners of the Majestic Star have opened a casino, will be opening a casino in Terre Haute and have promised the people of Terre Haute that casino will open smoke-free, but have not extended that same consideration to workers in Gary. I think we have now 18 states that have eliminated smoking
over 100 casinos.
In all workplaces, right, including casinos, many of our tribal casinos, and these are casinos that operate on sovereign land, are opening or have gone smoke-free. However, our casino right here in Gary, in a place where our residents are disproportionately affected by major health conditions, including heart disease, lung cancer. I promise you, you can look at any health statistic, and we in Lake County and in Gary are going to be at the bottom of any positive health statistic and at the top of any bad health statistic. So in a place where we are disproportionately affected, we also don't have the protections that many other people in other areas enjoy. And so we really, more than anything, just want to point out the disparity. When you have an organization like Spectacle, when you have an organization like Hard Rock, right, who has agreed to open a very similar, even when you look at the floor plan, the layout, the design, it's the same casino with the same people. The only difference is that the people who are going to work in Terre Haute won't have to breathe in deadly cancer-causing secondhand smoke, but the people who are going to work in the Gary casino will.
May I ask why? Why Gary? Why are these organizations, these businesses are not considerate of our citizens, our people?
You know what? I could. That's actually the name of our campaign. And
why not Gary?
Why not Gary? Why not Gary? And it's not a rhetorical question. I think that we have to seriously begin looking at why certain things happen in Gary and why certain things don't happen in Gary. When I worked for the city, I sat in a community meeting, and a young lady said something very poignant. She said, I got addicted to drugs in Gary, but I had to leave Gary to get treatment. Right.
Interesting.
And I don't want to get lost in the weeds. I could talk about this. I could talk about this forever and continue to go deeper, but
please expound, please.
Sure. Even when we look at COVID, right? Yeah. I think the global pandemic shed a huge light on all of the conditions that make members of our community more vulnerable to deadly diseases like lung cancer, but also to infectious diseases like COVID,
diabetes, congestive heart disease.
Exactly. All of these things. A big part of it is that our communities are less likely to have these protections. A lot of times, see, now I'm going into Black Lives Matter. There's this idea that we are that we're just disposable, right? That we aren't worthy of some of the same protections that other communities get. And a lot of that we have internalized because, even many of our policymakers look just like us, right? They live next door to us, but for some reason or another have decided that it's more important for the casino is more important to please the people who are executives in this casino than it is to protect public health.
And really, isn't it big tobacco who is kind of fueling the efforts to not make it?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And this has been such a tough nut for us to crack, because we know that only 14% of the nationwide population still smokes. We know that there are only 25% of people who are patronizing the casino that actually smoke. So they are catering to a very small percentage of even their market. But again, when you are invested in gaming, usually you're also invested in other things. So you're looking not just at gaming or the casino, you're looking at your entire portfolio.
Yeah. So
you're saying, okay, I have, gains in, now, mind you, I don't have a lot of money, so I'm not necessarily talking from a place of experience, of wealth. But, you're saying, okay, I'm invested in gaming, but I'm also invested in tobacco. I'm also invested in guns.
They're all tied together.
Yeah, they're all tied together. I'm also invested in the prison industrial complex. So while maybe going smoke-free, may help impact some gains in gaming, how much would I lose in tobacco, right? How much would I lose in my other areas of my portfolio? So what we have is the tobacco industry actually speaking through the mouth of the gaming industry. When they say, oh, we'll lose so much revenue. Oh, we won't make as much profit. They know that that's not necessarily accurate for gaming, but it may be accurate as they think of the whole portfolio, which includes tobacco.
Yeah. And that means putting the health of their workers to the side, not taking into account insurance costs because they're constantly ill. The children are ill because they're taking those carcinogens home to their children. So never mind the insurance costs, which insurance companies are one of the richest companies in the world anyway, so they're going to make their money. But yeah, the casinos, the gaming community, the tobacco, all of that, they're not concerned with the health and welfare of their workers. All they need is somebody to work. And that's it, bottom line. That's just not number one, or even they're not even number 5 on their charts.
So are they pulling in Gary and please continue. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
But like Lori said, the same company that's building the casino in Terre Haute is the same company that's building the casino in Gary. Because Terre Haute, smoke-free. Gary, not smoke-free. Now we have the COVID issue going on. So they're all smoke-free on the gaming floors. But they're still engaging in smoking in certain casinos, whether it be in the building or in the parking lot. But the parking lot is completely different. But yeah, so they're, we don't know how this is going to go, but none of them, but that's only due to the governor.
So I was going to ask before I had rudely interrupted you. I was going to ask, are they looking to bring in more of Gary citizens to be the employers, or are they going to be looking to outsource that employer? And then is it like special opportunities? Like, for example, if I have these skills, I'm able to perform, but if I don't, then I have to, be on the floor or have these, low-end jobs.
So I know a little bit about that because I work for Work-Driven Strategies, and we try to, provide employment opportunities to people. So the spectacle people are looking to get Gary citizens trained in becoming card dealers and all of the different positions that they're going to need to fill. So they are looking to the Gary population for employment opportunities, but it's going to require some skill building.
I want to say that was also stipulated in the state legislation that approved the land-based casino, that a certain percentage of them, they have to hire the folks who are at Majestic Star first, and then Gary residents next, and then I think the region. So there's a lot of emphasis on local hiring in the legislation.
Sure.
Well, and I heard that as well. However, why are they they're running the not advertisements, but they're offering applications on channel 2, channel 7, channel 5, just asking people to if they want to apply for a position for the casino. And they'll give the information. So I think that's like a little bit, if that's the case, I think that they should do that after they've hired, enough Gary citizens and current employees.
I think they're desperate for people. I see billboards all over wanting folks to go to dealer school. I think what COVID has done, it has made us all more appreciative of our health. And I'm not sure if folks are taking their health for granted in the same ways that they did before. I have some friends who work on the boat, is what we call it. They work on the boat and are just really beginning to take a second look. And a lot of it was because of COVID, right? Because they reopened the casinos and said, okay, you had to wear a mask, but they were still allowing you to smoke. So everybody's taking their mask down. They're putting their hands to their mouths, right, to smoke, and then touching the machines. And many of the workers there, just like, frontline workers all over, just felt like they weren't being protected. So I think it's going to be harder for them to recruit a quality workforce if they don't show that they have at least some consideration for their employees' health.
Well, currently there's no smoking on the gaming floors, drinking, or eating on the gaming floors. So that means that you have to wear your mask and keep your mask on your face at all times.
Now, what can we see as far as the what can we see as far as your organization, the coalition, doing to prevent or raise more awareness? I know being on platforms like Just a Kid from Gary, but what other things are happening from your perspective to challenge this?
Well, we work with all of the minority towns in Lake County, Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, and a little bit of Lake Station. And so what we primarily do is we do it through education. But since the COVID, we have not been, basically going out. We work with our public housing community. We work with our schools, policy, and that's how we get
city council.
That's our policy. Yeah, the city council.
We help people quit too by promoting the quit line.
And that's how we get the word out. We have a newsletter that we send out twice a year, which we have one that's due now. Isn't that right, Lori?
I'm coming with the newsletter.
We have monthly meetings, and we're always looking.
We have monthly meetings. This is our newsletter, and it's full of information. We have our monthly coalition meetings. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page that we constantly inform. We also work with our health departments. East Chicago and Gary. Hammond does not have a health department. We work with our hospitals. We do so much. We do a lot, but we encourage people to join our coalition. We also offer quit line help, and it's free. And not only is it free, they also supply you with NRTs, which is nicotine replacement therapy. And it can be either the gum or the patch. So that's a good thing for people who wants to quit smoking. And being that we're going to the new year, people constantly making New Year's resolutions. So this is an opportunity for them to get some assistance in quitting.
Okay.
I would think that, with the COVID, more now than ever. And that's basically it. It's just, we do a lot. We do a lot in education. We do presentations. We present to school boards. We present to boards. We work with our universities and our colleges. Yeah.
We survey the kids to see what their risk factors are that are driving them to the negative behaviors.
That's our youth tobacco surveys.
We survey retailers to evaluate their point of sale
and placement, and how the retailers place their tobacco products, and general. And you know what? I encourage everyone, the next time you go to a gas station or convenience store that sell tobacco products, just look at the placement. Cigarettes, tobacco products will always be candy, maybe fruit that's surrounding those products. They're always going to be at eye level for use. Your menthol tobacco products will always be right up in the front, in the middle. So when you get to the counter, they're right there. The pricing on like your Newports, the pricing will be bolder because the tobacco industry knows that minorities primarily smoke menthols. During our retail audits, there's certain stores that you go to in certain areas they don't even sell menthol cigarettes because that's not their population.
Or
But what we're really hoping is that doing things like this can get the attention of the people who really need to hear the message, which is, why not Gary? Why do our workers have to suffer with the secondhand smoke when workers in other communities don't? It's not right. It's not fair. And we want justice, and
That's
we
right,
hoping that some people who are the decision makers within these casinos and within the city hear our message that we're putting out all the time, that this isn't right to do to the people of Gary, and we're not going to stand for it.
Yeah, and that's the message that we also have to encourage the casino workers. I want the workers to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want the workers to stop feeling like they're ill, they have bronchitis, they have other health issues, and this is the environment that they have to go into. Casinos will tell you they have good ventilation systems. There's no safe level of tobacco carcinogens, and there's no safe ventilation. You have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Their children are sick because you have to care about yourself too. You have to care about yourself too. I know we need to work and stuff like that, but that's why we have human resource departments. Say something.
Yeah.
You say, like, when are we going to stop smoking here? Or they're not going to fire you because you ask a question, but you have to be concerned about your own health as well. We shouldn't always leave it up to other people to care about us. You have to start caring about yourself as a casino worker.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lori and Cynthia, but part of the reason, or the reason, that all of the other establishments throughout the city that still allow smoking, the bar, restaurant that Lori was talking about, and there's many other places as well. The reason they're able to get away with it still, because there's a statewide no smoking ordinance. The reason they still get away with it is because of the casinos.
Well, there's a loophole. There's a loophole in the statewide law that excuses private clubs. There's exempt, that exempt them. Yeah. So there's private clubs, there are casinos, and there are bars who only allow 21 and older.
Right.
Those age 21 and older.
And our bars that's in our area, and I thank God they went smoke free on their own. There's very few bars in Gary or Lake County, for that matter, that allow smoking. The bar that you're talking about where you live at, that's like 1 out of 20
Yeah.
that allow smoking.
If that, I thought there was more like 7. There's like 7 that allow smoking. Is that not true?
It's no more than 8. I'll put it like that.
There's definitely one in Porter County, right on Route 20 there.
But you heard what you said. That's Porter County.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
But again, and this is something that I talk about all the time because it just burns me up. The way that our country dealt with the stimulant drug epidemic versus the opioid drug epidemic. Oh, when folks were addicted to crack cocaine. I mean, I grew up in Gary in the 90s, right? And they were sending drug dealers off to jail, drug users off to jail. People were sick at that time, but they were crackheads, and they were stigmatized in a way that was very negative, and the entire approach was different. Right. To what we have now, which, I actually think it's an excellent thing. It's a public health issue, right? These people are sick and they need help. They need services. They don't need to go to jail, right? They need to go to treatment. And it's just been totally different in the way it has been handled. What makes me want to grind my teeth to powder is as a resident of Gary, as somebody who's from Gary, at that time, the leadership in my community was the same demographic. They were all Black people, right? We had a Black council, we had a Black judge, we had a Black mayor, at least until like 96, right? All my state representatives were Black. There was a way that folks who look like us, leadership who look like us, should have, maybe could have, had compassion on those people in the same way that compassion is being doled out now. But it didn't happen. I see the same thing happening here as we talk about secondhand smoke. Our local legislators had an opportunity to pass a law that would have required Majestic Star to be smoke-free. And Majestic Star filled the room with workers who looked just like us, who were Gary residents, so they had this visual of the people who were being affected by the problem, and they still decided not to take action. So that's something that I've been having a very hard time reconciling. At some point, we have to look at ourselves. I've seen the same thing with e-cigarettes. They have federally mandated that you cannot sell flavored e-cigarettes. However, you can still sell Black and Milds. That's what our children are smoking with flavors. You can still sell mini cigars. Those are flavored. You can still, menthol is a flavor.
They sell menthol cigarettes.
So, I mean, the way that this country handles those things, and then the failure of our local elected officials, members of our community, not protecting us when it's obvious that other political leaders find ways to protect their children. In Beverly Hills, it is illegal to sell cigarettes within those city limits. Kids growing up in Beverly Hills will never know what it's like to have to go in and pass up a whole row or a whole display of cigarettes when they're buying a honey bun.
Or being tempted, or just being tempted
or
to
being
buy.
tempted to.
Just being tempted.
And it doesn't mean it's not like we don't have the power here in Gary to put those same protections in place, but we don't. And I don't know why. And that is a problem for me.
I agree. So when everyone was talking, the one root thing that kept, I guess, was just so clear to me was systemic racism or systemic issues that are at the underline of all of these. And Albert, I want to direct this question to you because we see, for example, like in the past 2 podcasts that I had, I talked with individuals about our severe food desert in the city and no access to good food. And then you guys are have mentioned so many problems around the tobacco industry and even the usage or accessibility that they have, and how in some neighborhoods, for example, like Lori had mentioned, in white neighborhoods or neighborhoods that don't have so many minorities in them, you will see access to food or no true visibility of tobacco. So what can we do as the citizens, as the people, to mitigate this problem, or at least begin this process? If Albert, if you could just, let's say, for example, you could talk to all 75,000 people within Gary, Indiana. What, in your opinion, I want to try to scratch at some solutions here.
No pressure.
This is
right.
This is still you're talking about the food desert.
Well, I'm looking at the entire thing, but not just food desert. By the way, I brought up that to kind of use as an example.
Sure.
There's so many problems, right? But it seems like we're saying, okay, why they won't help, why they won't do, but my question is more directed to what can we do to, one, help with, the tobacco issue. And then if that leads into the food desert and things of that sort, you can hit that however you like.
How do we dismantle systemic racism, Albert?
That's really the concept.
2 seconds.
You're good at this. You're good at this.
That's great. First of all, thanks to, Lori and Susie and Cynthia, just, breaking that on down about
Beautiful.
How all of this is played out in Gary, right? We know that when power's on the scene, power influences, and it usually influences at our top, right? But you see this same pattern in I want to start off by saying this, Gary is not unique. You see the same pattern on inner cities, not just here in the United States, but throughout the world. And until you travel, you don't realize, this is the same game that the rich have been playing on the poor for eons. It's exactly the same. And all it is it plays on the vulnerabilities of citizens. So why are we vulnerable? Number one, we are vulnerable because of old historic laws and policies and practices that put Black folk in jeopardy eons ago. But because they were never corrected or addressed with justice, number one, those things have continued. So because we're vulnerable, when money or power comes in, we feel as though this is my one shot, right? If we turn away the big entity of casinos and don't bow or do what they say, they will leave us. So that's number one. When you're vulnerable, it means you don't have a steady, stable resource or link to power on your own. Now, we had that in some areas in the past, and we know what happened to those communities, the Tulsa, Oklahomas, right? The Rosewoods, and the numerous other communities in which they were able to self-establish their own identity and wealth and power. And so we can't have this dialogue merely around what can politicians do in order to protect us, without first talking about what it is that's necessary to make communities like ours, largely communities of color, stable. And that means we got to talk about us having money on the table, meaning whether we have our independent businesses. See, once we get that going, our individual businesses that work alongside with communities and workers here, and then a network where we're actually growing to where we're flipping dollars in our community. Now, they said that, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, they were flipping dollars up into the 20s, 21, 23 times, 33 times, before it ever left out. That is how you build a stable community. Otherwise, all we'll be doing is talking about how we're being victimized. And those are certainly true. And I know we always need to fight off predators. But in the meantime of fighting off predators, there's got to be branches of us that begin to use our creative power and our creative ingenuity to say, well, let the ones that are fighting fight, but also let us have a panel and a group that also begins to build and expand. Now that might sound fluffy, right? But until we do that, we'll be revisiting the same conversation about how power came in, dangled a carrot over our heads and made us twirl around and bend over from our political tops all the way to our labor citizens that are trying to do the right thing and take care of their families. What's amazing about what we saw a couple of years ago when we had that opportunity to go before our council and have the citizens say, hey, we need protection for our laborers that are working in casinos. And when we saw 3-4 buses pull up full of people that are workers that are wanting to take care of their families, the underlying theme that was underneath everyone that came up from their perspective was this fear. This fear, Joshua, means that if you've got fear, there's this huge area in which you know you're not covered or protected. That's what we mean by being vulnerable. So they were feeling, knowing generationally, wow, if I don't say yes to whatever it is that I'm feeling the pressure to say yes to, I might not have this job. And they all centered in, and everybody should have a right to work. However, we still need the right to work in healthy and safe environments. So what do? Here's what we do. We've got the model. It's called a coalition, right? A coalition is a military term. It didn't start, we're a coalition for substance use, but coalition is a military term. And it meant when you spot a threat across the globe, countries would volunteer their military forces to combine with other countries' military forces for the purpose of eliminating that power, that threat. They all realize, we're individual countries. Individually, we can't beat that big giant that's around the corner. However, we can come together collectively because we know that giant is after each and every one of our countries, right? Same thing with us here. We can still band together with a coalition model and have one that deals with the predators, those entities that look and feed upon like predatory lending, right? Mm-hmm. We know they're going to make big money off Black folk, right? Mm-hmm. Not just here in Gary, but in Detroit, in East St. Louis, and wherever else you got the same, watch this, you got the same predators who also realize we can run this game in every city where we know they're minorities because we know what happened to them back in the day, stripped them for opportunities to make money and have sustainable wealth to pass on. Such things as redlining, when banks won't give us loans. Absolutely. So if we use the format of a coalition, which is what we have, right, to say, well, let us do a reversal. Let us go after the things that make us vulnerable. For instance, if it's not having enough wealth, if it's not having enough healthy food opportunities within our communities, we can branch into committees based off of those things and see how we can take our limited resources now, use them to the best of our ability, and also gain capacity to bring in more, whether in the city or within the region or across the nation, to help build that. That's how we move from vulnerable to a more state of more power. And that's what this is really about. All of this is about power. And when you look at systemic racism, what was the sole purpose of racism being invented? It creating races when we know there's no biological difference between white, Black, Latinx, Asian. There's no biological difference amongst us. Race was purely created to divide the laborers who had once been working together, which were indentured servants, in order to take advantage of the group that was furthest away from their home place, which were the Africans. And therefore, they used that in order to maintain the gentry, which were the landowners from Europe, so that they could have, because they were the minority, to make sure that they kept that position of authority. And they used that to divide the former European, poor as hell, right? Trying to work off debt, who are also working alongside of Africans doing the same function. And all of a sudden now you got a hierarchy of race that didn't exist before. And so we can band together. We can come together as a coalition, just like we do to fight substance use. We can do it to better ourselves economically, better ourselves in positions of health, better ourselves across the globe, and just change it as the face of the predator changes, so does our strategy. And that's how we can help to do that.
Can I get an amen? Yeah. Way to go, Albert.
That was really
our guy right there, John. That's right.
I just say we
so
wouldn't be in this
beautifully
predicament
explained.
if they had just paid us for the work we did for 400 years.
reparations,
and
right?
gave us good schools to go to.
Say that.
Well, Albert, you laid that out.
Yeah, very good, Albert.
You laid that
Perfectly.
out. You laid that out.
I
Perfect.
got
But
it.
you know what? In the meantime,
Why is there background
what
noise?
is that? Oh,
I think it
in
was
the
just lacking
meantime, in the meantime, there are other things that we could. We know Albert has laid out the root, the foundation, where we need to go and what we need to do. But in the meantime, we still have a Gary City Council.
Yeah.
We need to attend those meetings and speak up. A lot of times we just go and we sit. And that's how other communities get things done. That's why only certain things are allowed to come into their communities, because their community people, they go to those meetings and they know you will not put a smoke shop here. You will not put a vape store here. You will not put, all those little convenience stores on our corners, because the people in those communities, they speak up.
Yeah.
They speak up.
They do.
And this is,
and I think
go ahead.
I think they're more free to speak up in a lot of instances because they don't have so many of the worries that the people in our community have. They're not as worried about, the fact that they can't get healthy food, or, that they may not have access to good health care and things like that, or they may not have, enough money to get by, so I feel like what Albert was saying, if we can address some of these root causes of why the people of Gary are so vulnerable, and start, chipping away at that, then you free people up to think about other stuff, like, going to a city council meeting and complaining that, the casinos aren't smoke free.
Yeah, you gotta have a beginning, and because during that campaign that we had the last time, you hear a lot of people mumbling, well, it's better than working at McDonald's. It's better than doing this. I got insurance. I got this. I got that. But you're dying.
Yeah.
You're dying. You're dying a slow death.
It's almost like the concept of pick your poison, because it's both lethal. It's never been a better change the situation.
Right.
I'm sorry, everybody. I have enjoyed this thoroughly, but I have to hop off.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much, by the way,
I
guys.
have 7 minutes.
Okay, real quick, guys, if you're listening to this, Lori, real quick, she left, but I was going to ask where could they find her, and ask her more information, because she has a lot of information. Hopefully one of you guys can help her side of the audience with that.
You can go ahead.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
No. Go ahead, Susie, because you're probably saying the same thing I'm getting ready to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we'll give you all the contact information for our coalition, and we can all be reached through the coalition.
Okay.
And we'll also give you our Facebook handles and our Twitter and everything. So,
Sure,
but I appreciate this. This was fun.
Yeah. I think that there needs to be a part 2 to this conversation, because I think that what needs to happen is we need to take what Albert has said, what Cynthia, Lori, and even Susie, what you all said, build it into something, and then give more information, because I think that what you have unloaded on people, especially for our city, we don't hear every single day. And it's something that I realized while doing creating this platform and even having this platform establishing, is that people don't have access to this type of information. One, because they're not going to community meetings, they're not going to city council meetings, and if they're not going and no one's talking outside of it, nothing really happens. There's a lot of complaint happening. So I really see this conversation really transition into something even further. So I want to say,
Josh,
go ahead.
A lot of times when people don't say anything, they just feel that you don't care. And like I would say, you put yourself in a position to, it's like I could be sitting on the sofa, and if you step on my foot and I don't say anything, and you can't come back again, you step on it and I still don't say anything, what does that say about me? I don't care. Yeah. And I think that that's what has happened. And I think that also most of the city's citizens of Gary, they're so beat down, and they're lacking so many, we're lacking so many things until, we just have to stay in their ear, get in their heads, remain informative, educate them through our programs, invite them. Well, everybody's invited to our coalition meetings once a month.
Yeah.
Hand out my email, Susie's email, Albert's email.
You touched on something really great, Josh, when you said, that people of Gary don't know about this stuff, that this might be the first time they're hearing about this stuff.
Absolutely.
But we've been doing this for, like Albert and Cynthia since 2001, me since 2012. Yeah. But the thing is, I see Cynthia's doing hand signals. I must have got the year wrong. But we go to meetings all over. Like, we all belong to the same coalition. We combined our coalitions, but I belong to like 7 other coalitions in the city. Yeah. And I go around to all these different meetings, and I see Albert at them, and I see Cynthia at them, and I see Lori at them, and I see all of the other people who, they're not just the, citizens of Gary. It's like all of us same people, but we don't get the regular people. We don't get the regular citizens to come to the meetings. It's all, there's a bunch of people in prevention. There's a bunch of people from law enforcement. There's people from treatment. There's people from insurance companies. There's people from partner agencies and all that.
Hospitals. Yeah.
Like, no mom, just a mom who has a kid in the Gary school district, Yeah. I mean, we've got a couple people like that because they have kind of dual roles. Yes, they're a mom with a kid in the Gary school system, but they also work for one of our partner agencies,
Absolutely.
So that's a dilemma for us, is we really would like to have more attendance at our meetings from people who are living in the places where we're trying to exact change, because they're the ones with their feet on the ground there and who know really what's going on. And it would be a huge help to us to have information from them to help us in our efforts. So,
and Susie, you're right. Because one of the things, like on our tobacco calls with our state partners, one of the things that they're constantly saying is where these communities that have smoke-free air laws and smoke-free casinos, even in South Bend, they have one. What helped them a lot was the community. It was, like Albert said, we got to have people on the ground, not just us. They hear us all the time. It's like, like one mayor said, "Oh, that's a tobacco lady." But if it was, Miss Smith down the street or whatever, and let's go a step further. Don't we still have, what do you call those people that, that's over sections of the community?
Aldermen?
Not aldermen, but maybe in Chicago they're called, what?
The councilman?
Committeemen?
No. They're not the mayor. They're not part of the council, but they have certain parts of the city within their areas. They're
CDCs or districts?
God, what do you call it? The what?
I said, are you
Maybe
referring to
districts, I
CDC
don't know.
or districts?
No, it's in your community. These are people that's in your community. If you have a complaint about something within your radius of your like Terrytown had theirs, and what do you call those?
I'm not sure.
It'll come to me after I hang up this phone. But yeah, but you know, we need those local people. We just need local, regular, everyday people that's not punching a 9 to 5, but they care. They care about what's going on in their community and then that's their city.
Sure.
So
you think
but I love y'all so much.
part 2, huh, Josh?
Huh?
You think we need a part 2 so we can talk about all the positive things that we're doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, there's so much more to have. This conversation has been enlightened. I think that this public platform needs to be, had often. I think you before, including Lori, brings so much value to our city that keeping you hush is not the best thing. And like I said, I know you're a part of these other meetings and you're putting out information, but any way that I can help, I love to do that. I want to say a big thank you to all three of you and even Lori included for taking the time to be on the platform, but at the same time, doing what you're doing for the community. I think that it's awesome that I was able to start something, and because I was just literally sending some DMs of a conversation that I had, Susie was like, Josh, I need to talk to you because I think what you're doing is cool and I want to be able to connect with you. And I think that's awesome because that's how we get places, right? If someone's doing something, we just network and we connect and we find out how we can build. So thank you.
I found you on Instagram, didn't I? Or was it
yes,
Facebook?
It was on Instagram. It was on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Josh, you met my voice coordinator, didn't you? DeMarche Cobb?
No. You said, did I meet?
Yeah. Did you communicate with her at all?
Not
for
yet,
voice?
No.
Okay.
But
All right.
but we will have to set that up then. Let's set that up because if this is
good.
somebody you want me to, I need to talk to them.
I
Yes,
do,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So
Okay. Well, y'all.
thank you so much.
Till the
Appreciate
next
it.
time, I'll send you Susie, you got my information.
Absolutely.
I'll
I'll put all your information in and where people can contact you. By the way, guys, we have been tuning in to Just a Kid from Gary. You have been listening to the Lake County Minority Tobacco Coalition.
And
with
the Gary Drug Free Communities Coalition.
Oh, absolutely. Can't leave them out with Susie, Albert, Cynthia, and then Lori, who had to leave. So, guys, thank you so much. Until next time, have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks, Joshua. See you soon.